Hi, folks. Duz is here. You're just hanging out. I don't know nobody's here. Nobody's watching, but what the hell? Who cares? I'm trying out YouTube's new YouTube Studio and live streaming thing. So I'm live streaming from Dud Central, which includes a kitchen. So, anyway, hope you guys had a good week. Hope you enjoyed Labor Day. It's been an interesting week. Got a lot done. Did a lot of adulting this week. It's always funny. As I look at the live camera, so I look at this, and it looks like I'm looking down because I am kind of because I'm looking at myself, but actually the camera's right there looking at me. And I should be looking right into the camera with my cold, dead eyes. But I'm not. They're not cold or dead. So I don't know, I was just thinking about some stuff. Figured we'll talk about stuff that maybe isn't quite so gaming related, kind of like the little chit chat I usually have before the stream, since I'm still got another hour to wait for Battlefield 5 to finish loading up. But I'm just having a discussion with my significant other about YouTube, and apparently this new thing about them cracking down on the child channels and child content channels and possible advertising and FTC actions and that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, that's not too far removed from, like Linus Tech Tips and that kind of stuff. I mean, it, but a lot of people don't. And the thing is, kids don't know what's the difference between an infomercial and real information. And you can follow all the rules in that and still somehow run afoul because they're going to make somebody, I don't know, they're going to offend somebody. But it's important to know the difference between what is a fact, what is objective reporting, what is a real experience, and what is really an infomercial. I'm sure, like in the case of Linus Tech Tips, or what's his face? To Franco, whatever his name is. I'm sure they're very well-meaning, and they obviously have the formula down with millions of subs and making a good living, very good living off of live streams and videos and such on YouTube. But the thing is, a big problem with the society we live in is that we're having a blurring of the line between opinion and fact. There used to be a term that was thrown around quite a bit. You don't hear it much anymore. It's called yellow journalism. What yellow journalism was in its essence the portraying of opinion and position as objective fact. And because a lot of people, even back in 18th and 19th centuries, there didn't bother to do a lot of research or didn't have access to it. Hell, a lot of people couldn't even read. They took everything they saw as gospel if it was in something that was a trusted publication, like a newspaper, never realizing and not having the facility to investigate and see that these opinions may have been bought, and they weren't in fact actual fact. They weren't in fact objective. Somebody had an agenda, and that's a very dangerous thing. It happens in news. It happens in even YouTube channels. A lot of things. You'll see a lot of guys out there who are basically shills, acting like they're just you and me and like something, or enjoy something, but all of a sudden, you notice that they've got a bunch of endorsements and free trips on EA or 2K games or something like that, just because they say nice things about a game or are paid to say nice things about a game. You should know that up front. It's something that should be, very obvious that you're watching, in this sense, an infomercial. Now, it doesn't mean it's not entertaining. It doesn't mean there isn't something useful in there, but it's not objective fact. Look, if somebody is paying you to portray a product, an idea, a position, it's not objective. Objectivity means that it is just basic on-the-ground fact. And if something is an opinion, aka editorial, that's something that you should really be aware of. This is somebody's opinion. It could be an educated opinion. It could be an uneducated opinion. But honestly, people who take anything that they see on Fox News or MSNBC as fact are actually shortchanging themselves because those have a bias. They have a particular spin on what is fact and what is not. And, you know, I mean, I'd rather look at the straight news story off AP Reuters, however they say it, or something like that, than, you know, I mean, it's not fair to call everything fake news and fake media. That's a cop out, and that leads to saying, well, if you're saying this or that is fake news and fake media, what is real news? And then that leads to the door open to someone giving you their own bias. That's not right either. Facts, news, opinion should all be something that's very much and very clear from the outset. Something that's presented as such, as what it is. Take it for what it's worth. If you like somebody's opinion, somebody's viewpoint, great. Listen to them, listen to what they have to say. But understand that that may not be the whole story. And because you like somebody or agree with somebody doesn't mean they're telling you the whole truth. You know, fake news, I don't like the term because, like I said, it objectifies the subjective. Not everything is fake news. And in the context that term is usually used, comes from somebody's bias. It isn't agreeing with somebody else's bias. So I'd say, you know, one thing we don't really touch on anymore in modern society is the concept of critical thinking, of looking behind just what's presented, of looking a little deeper, of seeing what the real story is. And, you know, a lot of people get duped because of it. And even in our everyday lives, critical thinking is important. It's not just, okay, because the first price I got to fix this thing that's broken is given, that is what it is worth. That is what it costs. That's not the case, you know, or that because somebody says they're the lowest price or that they're the best deal or they're the best service doesn't mean it is. You know, you have to do a little due diligence there. Of course, you take that to the extreme now, and it used to be there were certain things you could trust. You know, some people were trusted authorities, trusted figures, you know, things like that. And you're finding that that's just not the case. You have to be the subject matter expert on anything you're dealing with these days. And that's distressing too, that you can literally trust nobody because everybody has their own agenda. And an agenda is usually to extract as much cash out of you as possible. If that sounds pessimistic, I'm sorry, but that's how capitalism works, guys. You know, people try to get the most money for the least amount of effort on both sides. That's how it works. And if they say the best deal is if both parties come to an agreement and both are unhappy, you know, that means you got a good deal. You know, you've in essence leveled the playing field. So the whole concept of, you know, objectivity and what is real and what is opinion and what is fact, it comes into play for a lot of things, not just what you may think it does. So critical thinking involves digging a little deeper and not just using sources that you happen to agree with. Like if I hear a news story about something political, well, I may hear it on Fox News and instantly I'm going to have a bias. Okay, but I know it happened. Maybe I'll go to MSNBC and I'll hear the opposite view, and somewhere between those two is probably the truth. You know, that's an awful lot of work, and people are so taxed these days and so overworked and so burdened that they do just want things spoon-fed. The danger in spoon-feeding is that you let someone else make up your mind for you. Nobody should be making up your mind for you. You know, you're basically abdicating your own rights to choose. Nobody has the right to choose for you, and nobody should be trying to choose for you. Not a politician, not a government official, not a company, you know, not a game developer. Nobody. You know, this is your decision. You have a right to balanced and fair information and not to have to rely exclusively on hype. Unfortunately, in the world we live in, you know, the hype will drown out the facts more often than not, and people find out too late. But, you know, ultimately it is up to you. But it's going to involve, if you really care and you really want to know, you're going to have to do a little more digging. And not just accept the views that may seem most likable and most amenable to you. Wow, that was awfully deep for a gaming channel. But I'm just kind of rapping here. I'm just kind of going off what I could do. Just hoping to kill some time here. I've still got over about 50 minutes, 5-0. I keep talking about wanting to upgrade my internet connection. That hasn't happened yet. That costs money too. But I don't know. I was actually talking to a relative today, and I have another relative. I have a husband of my cousin who's actually in the same field I am, which is IT. And he's looking at how much trouble I have in keeping work because of my age and my experience, and I'm kind of in that weird zone of knowing too much for certain jobs but not knowing enough for other jobs. So that keeps me out of a lot of things. And the basic way that my field is structured, which is they hire people they choose people for jobs like most people choose a value menu item. If you're not exactly a number 5, you're not going to get sold. But they want the number 4. If you're number 5, even though the number 5 may be 90% of number 4, they're not going to choose you. That's how a lot of fields are now. But she was saying, Jesus, like he's kind of worried, and I'm like, and I told him, I said, best thing to do is to keep moving up. Keep moving up. If you're somebody who's happy working for someone else and being in the corporate world and in that light, then just keep moving up. Don't stagnate. Get to a point where you're management, to where you become somebody that can move from job to job easily and not have to worry about having the skill of the day or being treated like a value menu item. And this goes for all things, for all areas of work. Keep trying to move up, keep trying to advance, and when it's not interesting, go into something else. Move into something else. Do what they call a lateral move, whatever. But it's a matter of just knowing what the market wants and what the market is showing you, and that's the way a lot of people look at things when they're selling stuff too, and they try to convince you, which is a lot like trying to convince somebody to hire you or give you an interview, trying to convince somebody that against their initial reactions to what you offer, that you are indeed the choice and you would indeed be fit. Sometimes you have to show people, you have to demonstrate that you indeed are more than what's on that piece of paper that says resume. But and sometimes you got to be a little daring. And in this day of social media now, being a little daring could be detrimental to any career path you have, but it could actually also be a boon to show somebody that you have depth, that you have a breadth of interest and expression, as long as it's in line with stuff that isn't too, the key to that is if it's something that's offensive to somebody else, then you just don't go to those places. Look, I won't like go to Chickfila or Hobby Lobby because I personally don't agree with their policies on treating people who happen to have different sexual orientations. I don't agree with their position on that. I think it's wrong. Or their position on, what a woman can do or with her body or that kind of thing. And I don't, when you have somebody who's just paying you to do a job, I don't believe anybody has a right to tell you what to do on your free time. And that includes, look, if it doesn't affect what you're doing when you're doing the job, what right is it of anybody? But we live in an environment now that allows that, says that's okay, the corporate masters. And folks really need to throw off that yoke. Again, it goes back to the other thing I was talking about, which is critical thinking. You guys have to realize, and this is not radical thought, this is not revolutionary, but the bottom line is the only reason that corporations and governments and things get away with treating you in a way other than how you deserve to be treated is because we en masse allow it. We've said this is okay. And unfortunately, most of the time, the people who said that it's okay and the groups that support those people that say it's okay are not people that are in the vast majority. Because the vast majority just goes along, follows the rules, listens to what they're told, you know, and tries to conform as best they can. Unfortunately, they're conforming to somebody else's ideal. Guys, you need to be active. And I'm not talking about Facebook posts and Instagram and Twitter. I'm talking about going out there and supporting people that, you know, that you agree with their views, and people that are seeking positions of power and things like that. You know, you need to make an uproar. You need to get it into public eye, because let's face it, the 30-second soundbite is what sells anything these days. You know, even with the advent of social media, people don't want easily digestible and interesting. So you got to make things interesting for people. And you got to wake them up. You got to open their eyes to new things. And otherwise, if you just lay around and let things happen to you, you're going to keep living in a world that you didn't create, you know, that you had no say in. You have to have a say in it. You've got to sometimes be the rebel. So, like, in case I go on interviews, look, I'm who I am when I go for a job. I'd prefer to work for myself, but that's not a reality anymore for me. It's just not financially viable, so I have to work for somebody else. But when I go in there, you get who I am. You get me. You know, and I'm respectful and nice and kind, but I'm not anybody's doormat. And that's the thing. Stop acting like a doormat. You know, you be respectful, but be your best person. But no, you don't have to be treated like dirt. Nobody has the right to treat you like dirt. Nobody has the right to shut you down for something that is inconsequential and has no bearing on what you're there for. You know? You have to be a person first. You know, be who you are. Don't try to be anybody else. You know, and honestly, that's being honest with yourself, and that's being honest with somebody else. There are so many people that hate their jobs, and people that hate their jobs usually hate them because they're in the wrong job, because they portrayed themselves as somebody else, and then now they're miserable. You know, they take nothing out of it. They can find no good in it, no positive in it, and ultimately, you know, it's bad for them and it's bad for the people they're working for. It's not fair to either one. And you say, well, gosh, you know, I mean, this is all I can get, and I have to have this job. Well, then you need to figure out what's important to you. You know, in that case, it's the lesser of two evils. But sometimes the lesser of two evils turns out to be better than you thought. For example, the last job I had, there was a lot of things about it I didn't like. There's a lot of aspects to it that were wrong and drove me nuts and were against my professional training and my professional experience. But the positives were the people. And I really learned and grew myself because of the people. And that was what's important. That's what got me out of bed every morning. It taught me that it's not necessarily the line of work, you know, and doing exactly that thing that you trained for or that you're necessarily good at. Sometimes it's something intangible, like just dealing with people and the smile from somebody, or that you made someone's day. That stuff is just as important. And if you can find that, if there's some aspect of what you're doing, if you're not completely happy with what you're doing, change your focus. You know, what is really important to you as a person? And what I found out was important to me as a person was that I need to feel like I'm making a difference, a positive difference in people's lives. It's important to me. And I was able to do that. It made a job that would otherwise be something I would have quit in a week, tolerable for 3 years. You know, and the fact is, when I saw things wrong, I eventually had some power to try to make it right. And I was granted that autonomy. That's what you work for. That's what you look at. If you can find that aspect of what you're doing and find the positive, and sometimes the positives, again, come from places you never expected and didn't know were important. This is why it's important to know who you are and what's important to you when you're doing anything. You know, I don't care if it's a job or a YouTube channel or whatever. Okay, so I'm on my soapbox. I've been going on for almost 20 minutes here. I'm amazed. But, you know, I haven't done this in a while because I really haven't anything to talk about. While I'm waiting for Battlefield 5 to load up, God, now we're over an hour again. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to stream tonight, but I'll try. Maybe at least for a little while. It's getting pretty late here. But I've been on a strange shift anyway. But Anyway, folks, that's all I got to say. Hey, hopefully I'll see you in a little bit. I'll definitely see you this weekend at some point. You have a wonderful day. Whenever you're watching this, even if you're watching it live, which I don't think you are. Let's see here. I don't see anybody in here yet, which is not a surprise. But have a great one. Do your best. Be true to yourself. Be true in all you do. You know? With that said, I'm out. You guys have a great one. See ya.